In this video, we will study about functions of a flower. Functions of a flower. A flower serves an important function in plants. As a reproductive part, it ensures the continuation of species by the process called reproduction. So, as a reproductive part, it ensures the continuation of a species by the process called reproduction. The first step for achieving this is pollination and second step is fertilization. So let's study about pollination. What is pollination? So the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of the same flower or another flower of same type of plant is called pollination. The transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of same flower or another flower of same type of plant is called pollination. It occurs naturally by means of some external agents such as wind, water and insects. It occurs naturally by the means of some external agents such as wind, water and insects. So pollination is the transfer, or you can say is the process of transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of same flower or another flower of same type of plant is known as pollination. It can occur naturally by means of some external agents such as wind, water and insects. Let us study types of pollination. There are two types of pollination, that is self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination and cross-pollination. Let's study self-pollination. When the pollen grains from the anther of a flower are transferred to the stigma of same flower or another flower of same plant, it is termed as self-pollination. What is self-pollination? When the pollen grains from an anther of a flower are transferred to the stigma of same flower or another flower of same plant is termed as self-pollination. We can see in the diagram transfer of pollen grains. We can see transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma. Transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma. You can see. So the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of same flower or another flower of same plant. In this case, it is transferring to another flower of same plant. In this case, pollen grains are being transferred from anther to stigma of same, or you can say in a same flower. So this process is known as self-pollination. Self-pollination occurs naturally. So in case of self-pollination, this transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of same flower, or it can be from one flower to another flower of same plant. Cross pollination. When the pollen grains are transferred from the anther of one flower to stigma of another flower of same type is called cross pollination. When pollen grains are transferred from the anther of one flower to stigma of another flower of same type, it is called as cross pollination. So we can see in the diagram, pollen grains are being transferred from anther to stigma from one flower to another flower. So such type of pollination is called as cross pollination. Now we will study about what are the agents that causes cross pollination. Cross pollination takes place by various external agents like wind, water and insects. So wind, water and insects are the agents that causes cross pollination. Let's see how pollination is done by help of wind. Some plants like maize and wheat have dry and light pollen grains produced in large quantity. As the flower of these plants get matured, pollen grains are blown away by wind. When these pollen grains fall on a stigma of a flower of same type, thus results in pollination. So, some plants like maize and wheat have dry and light pollen grains produced in a large quantity. As the flowers of these plants get matured, pollen grains are blown away by the wind. Some of these pollen grains fall on the stigma of a flower of same type, thus results in pollination. So in this way, pollination is done with the help of wind.